Hello and welcome back to Key Comic Universe. I'm back here today to talk about investing versus collecting and the different types of investing you can do with comics. But before I get into the video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and check me out on Instagram at Key Comic Universe. Also, before I get into the video, just a quick disclaimer. Everything I'm talking about is either personal opinion or isn't really financial advice per se. Most of this stuff is just my opinion and stuff that I follow as rules and my thoughts with my experience. So, starting off, investing versus collecting. So, with collecting, it's basically when you're picking up a book that you're going to keep, you have no plans of selling, you want to hold on to those books and you don't want to get rid of them or do anything with them. You're buying them because you enjoy them, not as an investment. Then with investing, you're putting money into a book and you're expecting a return on your investment at some point in the future, where you're able to sell that book, move it, and then make your money back off of it and gain a fair amount of money. So starting off, we got types of investment. So I think there are three main types of investment that are worth considering and that I see talked about the most. So we're going to start off with basically what is kind of like the penny stocks of comics. And that is comics that are around $1 to $5 that you expect will go up in value. And that you are like, hey, I'm going to put my money into these $1 to $5 books. And one day or eventually they will gain value, either because they have like a small appearance or a small character now that you think, hey, this character is going to become big in the future, or other reasons related to that. So when you're buying those really low value books, there's a couple things to take into consideration. Number one of the most important things to consider is, why is this book low value? Why am I buying a book that no one else is buying or seems to care about? That's something that you have to consider, because let's say you buy this book and you're planning on flipping it or selling it in, let's say, 2 to 5 years or somewhere around that, along those lines. Well, what if the book doesn't go up? Like, what if it stays there? Are you willing to break even? Are you willing to lose money on these books? Now, of course, you're not spending a lot of money on each individual book, but once you're buying like 20, 30, 40, 50 plus copies, the count and the cost goes up. So let's say you buy all these books for $1 each, and they only go up to $3 to $5. You're doing okay. You're not making a lot of money if you're selling them at that point. You're still, there isn't very much money there. There's not very much meat on the bone, you could say. Your percentage looks amazing. Like, let's say you sell a book you bought for $1, you sell it for $5. Boom, you have this huge increase. You're making $4. But those $4 is so small and such a small amount that it's really not going to make or break how much money you're making. Also, when you're buying these like really low cost books, there's a lot of risk there, because these books could, number one, a bunch of lower listings could come up online, and the book tanks even further in value. It's really tough with these smaller books. And you also have a lot of concerns and worries. Like, let's say you put in like $500 into just one book or into two books that are in this range, and you're like, hey, I want to be able to make money off of these, and let's say they don't go up or anything like that, you're kind of stuck, or you can only break even, or you might even lose money. So that could definitely become an issue. Next is the people who buy only high-end or only really expensive books. Like, you could say Grail, arguably, or high-end keys. And that's the second group of investing. So with that, there's also risk with that you can take a look at. But there's also a lot of benefits to only buying really expensive books. So first off, there's a reason these books are expensive. There is a reason people want these. There's a reason people put their money into these books already. It's because the value is there. People know that these books are going to be worth money, long term, short term, and you can sell those books at any time, because people always want to buy those books. But there's also a little bit of a risk, you could say, to this. And this is more portraying to the last year, 2 years. You can definitely look at as an example. So in 2021, books shot up crazy. Prices went crazy. People got their stimulus checks. It was lockdown. People were bored. And then you get into 2022, And these books that were really hot, really expensive, start to go down in value. So if you had invested at that point in time, you're right now looking at a loss. So if you were going to buy for the short term and want to flip in the short term with those high-end books, well, now you're kind of stuck with them unless you're willing to take a huge loss. Like, let's look at AF-15, for example, and this is kind of rough numbers. This isn't going to be perfect. I don't know everything off the top of my head, but let's just say, and it's going to be relatively accurate, let's just say an 8.0 or 8.5 would cost you $150,000 during 2021. And you held on to the book, and you still have it right now. That book is selling for like right around $80,000, somewhere in that range. And you're taking almost a 50% loss. And if you want to sell the book, if you want to move the book, you're either going to have to wait a really long time to have it get back up to those numbers. It's going to be a while. Or you're going to have to sell it now, and you're going to take a huge loss. You're going to lose money, and you're going to run into issues. So that's a bit of a problem. You see, you're losing money. It's not fun. It's not good. Not a good feeling. But the good thing about these high-end books is that the value is there. It's already there. People already want these books. And if you're willing to hold, and if you're willing to wait years, you can make your money back pretty easily. And you're going to make good margins, a good difference in what you put into the book. Now, the percentage might not be as high. So, for example, you buy a book, let's say 2 years ago, theoretically, 2 years ago at $1,000, and then today the book's worth about $1,200. Maybe about $200, not too good. But you hold on to the book for another 5 years, and let's say the book gets up to, I don't know, $3,000 or $2,000. Boom, you're making your money back. Sure, the percentage might not be as high as if you're buying into those penny stocks, but the raw dollar amount is going to be so much higher. You're going to be able to make such a bigger amount of raw dollars on it that you can easily be happy with that. So, finally, the final kind of like piece of the puzzle of the 3 types of investors, that is the everything investor. So the everything investor doesn't care if the book's worth $5, $20, $100, or $1,000. They're looking to put their money into a wide range and put their money into just about everything. Now, me personally, I kind of fall into that category a little bit more. I'm trying to lean more towards the high-end side of things, kind of moving out of all those penny stocks and stuff like that. Or not, well, that's kind of like the nickname I give those $1 to $5 books. You're basically buying it at super low values, but the risk is pretty high on those. But I want to move into the higher end stuff. But currently, I'm kind of like the everything. And everything investor, they run into their own set of issues. Number one, the money's going to be stretched. You're going for just about everything. You're putting your money into just about everything. If you're not careful, you can end up spending all your money. Also, if you're going for literally everything, you're going to have to be checking so many books. You're going to have to be checking so many prices, seeing where everything sits at, seeing where you want to sell at. There's all these different types of things that you're going to have to consider and be paying attention to and focused on, which if you have other things going on in your life, or, you don't have the time to look every single day, making sure that you're all good, or, once a week, or whatever it may be, then it can definitely lead to time issues and, as I mentioned previously, some financial issues if you're not careful with, how much you're spending, where you're putting your money, all of that type of stuff for these types of investments. So, they also run into the same issues as both the penny stock people, like, the people buying the $1 to $5 books, and they also run into the people who are only buying high-end. They have both of those problems, and both of those problems can come up. Now, those are definitely just some considerations and some things to definitely pay attention to with those types of investing. But I want to go a little bit further and talk a little bit more about individual factors, individual things to consider a little bit further. And let's just get straight into that. So first off, you have something that's really important and something that should really be taken into consideration almost more than the raw dollar, and that is risk. And risk, the best way I can look at it, and the best way I see it showing up is with people who buy into speculation. Now, speculation isn't bad, per se. But if you're not careful, you can lose way more money on speculation than on pretty much anything else if you're not careful with it. So, when you're speculating, let's say you think a character is going to show up in a movie, and you're like, I can guarantee almost with certainty that this character is going to be there, even if you have no proof or evidence, but people do that. But let's say, like, you're looking and you're like, oh, I see it, that character is going to show up. You put your money into the book, you buy the book that everyone else is speculating on, and boom, the character doesn't show up, or boom, no one cares about the character, or even the character shows up and then they die in the movie. Well, well, now you're stuck with this book. This book, like we saw with Gore the God Butcher, his first appearance was up there, hundreds of dollars for a single copy, and that book fell off so fast. Like $100 or less easily now. Way under $100 for Roz. And you're stuck there like, oh no, I put my money into that, and I didn't think about the risk. I didn't take into consideration, like, that this character might fall off, or that Marvel might kill them off. So when you're looking at that for risk, it's definitely a big thing to consider. Me personally, I go by the logic of buy the books I like. If I'm going to invest into something, buy what I think is good before there's a movie announcement, before anyone's going crazy. For example, The Hood. I was buying up copies of The Hood, issue number 1, at $1 a piece, and then once that book started going creeping up a bit here and there, I'd start buying them at about $20 each. And you know what I did? As soon as the character got announced for the MCU, I sold. I sold so fast. And I mean, well, look, some of those books, the price is still pretty good. People are still looking to buy that book, but not as much as when the character was announced. But I was able to sell the book off super fast, so I could price a book 10 or 15% below FMV, and I'd be fine. I sold those books, got rid of them in a bunch of different grades, so yeah, I was happy. But like, let's say you saw that, hey, the Hood's showing up in the MCU. You buy into the book right on that hype, or even a little bit after the hype. And let's say theoretically, when that character hits the TV screen, movie screen, whatever it may be, I think it's TV actually, but they hit the TV screen and they don't have much impact, or they get killed off, or people don't like the character, boom, you're stuck. Or the character is super successful, like let's say with Falcon. Falcon, people were specking on his first appearance. He made it into Falcon Winter Soldier. He was one of the main characters. TV show ends, he's still around. He's Captain America now. His first appearance fell off even with that, because all the speculation went away. It just disappeared. People stopped specking on the character, and then people who bought that book are now stuck with it unless they want to take a loss, especially if they bought at full price back when it was really hot. So there are definitely risks, and that's definitely what I want to bring up. Mainly I see that in speculation. There's a lot firmer markets you can go into, where there's a lot better chance that you're going to make your money back. And that's why I'm going to go into ROI, and how likely, the return, what type of return you're looking for, all of that type of stuff. And so when you're looking at returns, and this is really important to consider before you even buy a book, how much of a return do you want? How long are you willing to hold the book for? How long are you willing to have your money tied up in a book? And that's kind of a thing that a lot of people don't think about. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy this book, I'm going to be able to flip it, or I'm going to be able to sell it eventually. But my whole thing is have a set number in mind. Like, what price do you want to sell this book at? Like, when this book hits X price, when are you selling it? Or, when it hits X dates. Like, how long are you going to hold on to this book for? Like, ignoring the price, ignoring everything else. How long? And that's why I look at ROI. Like, what's the past history of the book? Like, let's say this book goes up by $100 a year, theoretically. And let's say you bought this book 2 years ago. You can expect, the book to be about $200 higher. But you want to hold on to the book for another 3 years. So you should expect it to be about $300 higher when you sell it. So you can make about, $500 off of this book. Theoretically, considering everything goes right, considering it's a solid book, all that type of information. Or you could be in the position where, okay, I bought this book for $1,000. I want to sell it when it gets to $1,500. Yeah, look at the past history of the book, how much it's increased every single year through sales, through FMV, all of that type of stuff, and take all of that into consideration when buying the book. Next thing I'm going to talk about is two different things I mentioned already in this video, but that's percentage and raw money difference. Percentage is definitely really important to look at when you're buying, or how much are you willing to take on percentage. I think that's important just to consider, But I think almost more importantly is the raw dollar difference from when you bought to when you sold it. That's going to really have a lot of impact on the actual money you're making, as opposed to the percentage where, like, let's say again, you buy a book for $1, you sell it for $5, huge percentage, but the dollar is super low. So you have to take both of those into account. Like, okay, I'm going to make enough of a percentage back. Like a lot of sellers out there will buy books at about 60%. And this is just an example. This doesn't have so much to do with investing. But they'll buy at 60% of value, maybe 70%, maybe a bit more in some really, really specific cases for an individual book or even for a really, really nice collection. So, you're looking at that when you're buying to sell. And so you're looking at that percentage because it's going to be really important when you sell. Like how much meat will be on the bone when I go and sell, how much of this is going to really matter. So both of those things super important to look at. Next is fair market value. Bryce Comics made some really good points. I'm just going to reiterate some of the points he made, as well as some of my own thoughts. So fair market value tells you basically what the average selling price of the book is, like over the past X number of days, months, maybe even years for some apps, or some websites. But mainly it's going to tell you the last year, the last 6 months, the last 3 months, whatever it may be. That can be really important to look at just to get a rough idea. But you want to dig a little bit deeper. And the reason is FMV in a stagnant market is really nice to look at because everything's going to be right around the same. And you're going to be able to tell exactly where the price average is at. As opposed to an increasing market or a decreasing market. When you're looking at those two, and let's say you have 6 prices or 3 prices, one's in the center, one's up high, and one's down low, and the price of the book is going up. Well, you could look at the book and be like, oh, I should buy it right at this middle price. It's going to be, that's a good price. But if that book's going to keep on increasing, it's going to keep on going up, or and vice versa, decreasing and going down, then you're going to run into the issue of buying it for either too high of a price, or you might not even be able to find the book at that low of a price, and then you lose out on that book. I'm not supporting FOMO. FOMO sucks, but it's something you consider. If you're going to invest into a book, and you're looking for an X price just based off of most, let's say, last 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever number of sales, you just want to base what you're going to pay just strictly off of that, then that could kind of lead to some issues of either overpaying or not being able to find a book at the right price because, increasing market, decreasing market. And Bryce Comics does go a bit, I think it goes a little bit further than I do with my example, and he also probably explains it a little bit better than I do, but fair market value is important. Just look at recent sales as well. Look at sales from years ago or, longer than just the last 3 or 6 months. Okay, next, I'm going to bring up some examples of and this is going to be mainly for higher end books, just because those are going to be the easiest examples to talk about, and where I personally think that investments really are the nicest place to go into, and that's going to be high end books. So, what type of high end books would I or do others often invest in? So, I'm going to ignore most of the more common stuff or the more stuff that it's a little bit more risk. The most steady stuff I see, if you look at year over year, is number 1, Golden Age horror. Pre-code horror, and also you can kind of bring in pre-code superheroes or even certain pre-code crime books. You can bring in a few of those and talk about those as well. But if you want to talk about something that's really nice and that has been really nice for the last 20 years, that has really good increases, really good raw dollar to percentage difference, with their increasing in pricing, is pre-code horror. Pre-code horror is just something I'm relatively knowledgeable on. It's probably not the most knowledgeable person of all time, but I do have good knowledge on it. If you look at the sales from let's say 5 years ago, they're higher now. And you go 5 years to the previous 5 years, it's higher then. And you go 5 more years back, it's higher up. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but basically every single year the prices increase. And in 2021 the prices boom, they went way higher than they've been ever before. And they're actually higher this year for those really nice books, for really high-end ones. I'm talking Weird Mysteries 5, Chamber of Chills 19, stuff like that. The pricing just keeps on increasing, even right now in a down market, almost across the board for comics. those books are still going up in value. People are still putting their money into those books. People are still investing into those books. I'm still investing. But what makes Pre-Code Horror a great investment is, number one, the books are iconic. Most of them, are just really nice looking books, great storytelling, historical importance. That's something to look at. And then also scarcity and sometimes even rarity, where these books just aren't really out there for market. You might see some with as well on the census as 20 or as high as like over 100, but you're not seeing like 200, 300, 400 for a lot of them, or really very many at all. You're not even going to see above 1,000 or above a few hundred usually. 1,000 or more, yeah, that just ain't happening. They are tough. They are scarce. They don't come up to the market as often as anything from the silver, bronze, or even a lot of other Golden Age books. So there's that scarcity, that wantability, you could say, with people being like, okay, I want that, I need to add that. And when they come up, a lot of times they sell. Whether or not it's a fast sell, like for buy it nows, but if you see auctions, they always go for good money. If you see it buy it nows, eventually those end up selling as well. So that's just really nice to see. Pre-Code Horror, great place, in my opinion, where I put a lot of money in. Next is high-end Silver Age keys. You can also roll in, I guess, Golden Age superheroes again. You can kind of roll Golden Age superhero stuff in with a lot of this type of stuff, mainly for Atlas and DC. Some of the other companies, it just depends, but I'm not as knowledgeable on those as with Pre-Code Horror or Pre-Code Crime, stuff like that. But Silver Age superhero books also have a great return. Not right now as crazy as Pre-Code Horror has been, and right now, because of the down market, it makes it look really bad to go for Silver Age high-end keys. It looks really bad right now. It looks like, oh no, AF-15 is down like so much money. But if you look at before 2021, if you're looking at 2019, 2020, these books are still doing pretty nice. They're still doing pretty good. And you can look towards the future, and if you look further in the past, look at what the return has been on these books year over year, the increase is definitely there. The price going up is there on those, for sure. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can also, one more thing I guess you could consider is like how much money you're willing to spend, and how much cost you're willing to pay for these books. But I think that's kind of been covered a bit, and it's also kind of common sense. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. If you guys want to check out my other videos, please do so. Let me know if you guys like this new format, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Thank you for watching.